All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we are talking to Gail Behrend, who is an engineer, author, speaker, and energy healer. Gail, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Timmy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show, Gail. We like to jump right in. So if you could start with telling
Sure.
us a little bit more about yourself and what you like to do for fun, that'd be great.
Oh, well, how do I start? Um, so I have a long journey that caused me to come from a skeptical left brain logical engineer to somebody embracing being a healer. And so as you can imagine, it probably took quite a bit to turn me around because I
Yeah.
was very closed to any kind of expanded ideas. And I can get into that later. We can talk about that later. Right now, you asked me what do I like to do for fun, and I love skiing, sailing, windsurfing. I haven't done those for quite a while, but I love them. And since COVID, I've gotten more sedentary, so I'm out of shape. That's why I'm not doing those things.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But I do love walking and nature on the beach. And I did sail a year or so ago, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, and I also enjoy reading, and I go with friends. I like to go to concerts, and I enjoy dancing as well.
There we go. Full life right there.
Yeah, yeah. Not as full as it used to be, but
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
but things have gotten shifted a little.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your day to day. You're not a like in the weeds engineer anymore. So,
That's
as an
right.
energy healer, and I think you do some corporate consulting, is what you mentioned before the show.
Yeah, yeah. I was an engineer for 20 years, and then I got tired of the lifestyle. I was on the road all the time. I was spending more time in hotel rooms and in refineries, oil refineries and things like that than I was at home. And so I came to a point in my life, which people often do when they reach 40. It's like, is this how I want the rest of my life to look?
Yeah,
And so around that time, I had an opportunity to do something completely different, just out of the blue. And I quit my engineering just because I really needed a break. And I ended up helping a friend run a French country inn for about 9 months. So talk about a change. I knew nothing about running hotels or anything like that, but it was an opportunity too good to miss. So
yeah,
um, and in order for that to happen, I had to go through some changes in my own life that put me in a state of mind where I would have been receptive to that. And what happened to me was, and you asked me in my day-to-day life now.
hmm,
So right now I have a dual life. So like Superman, who's mild mannered reporter,
yeah,
in one life, and the other aspect, he's a super being flying around with a cape. So for me, during the week, I'm a mild mannered corporate training developer. So I develop training for companies, and I use my engineering background for the type of training I develop is technical training for people like plant operators and that
gotcha.
sort of thing. So the big burly guys in hard hats, that's training for them. And I also write technical documents. So I write, like, I have done work for, say, software companies, developing, like user guides, online help, and um, like reference guides for developers themselves.
Yeah,
So really into the tech stuff. And the benefit of that was it taught me how to actually write books and publish them and that sort of thing. Um, so that's kind of my tech geeky world that dominates the week, and I do it on contract. So I'm a freelancer, so I don't do it full time. I'm
gotcha.
doing 3 days a week, um, and the rest of the time I'm an author, so I'm writing, I'm preparing a Kindle version of my book right now, and I'm also talking to people about energy and things like that, and during the weekends, then I see clients. So I see healing clients on the weekends. So it's a totally different world. I
Yeah,
have to change gears significantly from one to the other, from the logical left brain to the intuitive, compassionate healer. And then a few years ago, I um, joined forces with a fellow energy practitioner who we were teaching our clients certain energy skills, and we'll talk a bit later about what I mean by energy skills, but things like how to manage your emotions in a difficult situation, things like that. How do you change the state that you're in? And so we would give our clients tips, some little exercises to try on their own, between sessions. And they kept coming back and say, "Can you write that down? I can't remember it." So she said, "Yeah, my clients are doing the same thing." So we said, "Let's write a book." So the two of us collaborated on writing a user guide for your energy.
Yeah.
And so this got me to take my engineer mind, the left brain logical mind, and my healer mind joined forces. And so here I was able to write a user guide, but on a subject I'm passionate about, not just some software that's going to be obsolete in 6 months, but rather our own software, our own energy, and how can we use it effectively in our lives to create what we want, and to find joy and improve our relationships and find our power ultimately.
Mm, I love that. Well, tell us a little bit about the shift. So before we jump into the techniques you talk about in the book, tell us about the shift you had to make to go from engineer to running that hotel to
Oh,
ultimately
yeah.
energy.
Oh my God, what a shift. Yeah. Well, it required heartbreak in a nutshell. I was very close to these sort of newer ideas, to the point where I wouldn't even allow a Bible in my house. I would like cross my finger and say, no, like
Yeah.
warding off the evil eye, whatever. Because I had, my father was allergic to religion because his parents were, they were both Christians, but they were in different churches. And the churches, sometimes they disagree with one another, right? Even in the
Yeah.
Christian world. And they were both fighting to take him to communion. And so it was an impossible situation for a kid. He, one way or another, he was going to disappoint one of his parents. And
Yeah.
so it put him completely off church and religion. I think he was a deeply spiritual man, but he didn't know what to do with his spirituality. So he just denied it. And anyway, so that was my mom. So that was my father's influence. And I ended up going kind of the rational, logical way, because that's what he did, and that was kind of like the dominant theme in our family. So, and I enjoyed it too. I was actually quite good at it, and
Mhm.
engineering can be quite creative. But it left me with this very closed attitude towards spirit and things like that. I figured there was a logical explanation for everything. We just didn't know it yet, right? And I myself, I didn't know if there was a God or not, and I couldn't call myself an atheist, because that's taking a position which we don't have enough data to
Yeah.
make that decision, right? So
I gotcha.
I chose the safer alternative, which was, I don't know. I
Uh-huh.
guess, which you can call agnosticism. I don't know. And so that was as close as I got to feeling spiritual, like, except I did feel it I felt it in nature. So if I was looking up at the stars, that something would touch my heart, something would move me. Or if I was, on a mountain top looking over this vast panorama, something would move me. I didn't know what it was, but that was as close as I got to any kind of spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening for me was I had a nice, orderly life. I was in my 30s, and I'd met the man that I loved, and we were talking marriage and kids. We were living together. We'd been together 4 years. We were looking at buying a house. And so in my neat, ordered engineer mind, the logical progression was happening. I was moving towards the house in the suburbs, the marriage, the kids, the whole thing. And I was comfortable with that. That felt, I loved him, and I thought he loved me. But I discovered, um, and it was a shock to me, that he was having an affair. And I was heartbroken, because I totally trusted him and had no clue. And suddenly it seemed that was it. My future had just fallen off the edge of a cliff. And so we ended up breaking up. And I was heartbroken. I was in deep grief and sorrow and despair, and it felt like I had no future. That, what now? And it was the man I, in my heart, committed to. And so now what? It's like I can't have love. That was the underlying belief at the time. And then, like many women, especially, I don't know about men so much, but a lot of women will turn it on themselves, and so there'll be self-judgment, and what did I do wrong? How, maybe I'm not lovable. Maybe I'm not worthy. All of those thoughts that our ego can kind of hit us with when we're down. And so that led to a negative spiral of despair, and ultimately to the point, after sitting in this state, to contemplating suicide. So it was a very bleak and dark place, and a place where I just felt less like there were like these self-loathing thoughts, and with no real basis, but there was, they drive you into that spiral, and if you don't know how to stop it. And so I came to this place of thinking, if I can't have love, what's the point of living?
Yeah.
And in that place where I felt totally worthless and unlovable, I suddenly heard these words in my head: "But I love you," accompanied by a rush of energy down my crown. Remember, I had no frame of reference for this. This was like suddenly out of nowhere, these resounding words, accompanied by the most loving energy tingling through my whole body out of nowhere. I was alone. There was nobody. It wasn't human. It wasn't anyone I knew. And it was far more loving than anyone I knew. And it felt like every cell was being hugged. I felt like every atom of my being was seen and loved and cherished. And I had no idea how could I switch suddenly from suicidal despair to this state of profound being seen and loved. And I didn't know what that was. I had no frame of reference for it. And so, but I knew it was real. Whatever it was, I could feel it tangibly in my body. I could feel the tingling energy in all my cells. And I went into this expanded state where I was kind of seeing things from a more universal perspective, and the energy of this being, or this consciousness, seemed incredibly vast, and at the same time incredibly personal, in the sense that it knew who I was.
Yeah.
And it loved me anyway, with all my flaws and all that. They were how people can love ugly dogs.
Yeah.
Because they're so ugly, they're cute. so it was like, even my flaws were cute. It's like I'd never had that level of acceptance and total love. And so I also saw, in that state of expanded being, I saw that I wasn't unique. It wasn't something that I personally was special about, than anyone else. It was just, this is actually the truth. We're all loved that much. And I was blessed to have that experience personally, and to know it in the same moment, that this is not me being singled out for special favors. This is actually the truth behind all the stuff. We're confused. We don't know the truth that's behind everything. We've believed a few things that were not true. And we also thought we had to get things from other people, when in fact we're surrounded by this incredible intelligence. And I didn't know what it was. I had no frame of reference for it. So when that, naturally, I had to figure that as the engineer, once it got a grip again, because it was blown away by this experience. And it was a tangible, if it had just been words, I could have dismissed it and said, yeah, I'm making that up. But the fact that it was accompanied by this powerful, loving energy, and it wasn't mine, I didn't know where this came from, got me curious. What was that? And that started the seeking. So because I had no frame of reference for it at all, I had to find out, well, what is, obviously there's more to life than I thought. There's more to reality than I thought, and it's big. Whatever it is, it's huge. And I need to know more. And so that started my journey from skeptic to seeker. And I didn't know where to start. I mean, the first things I did was I thought, well, it sounds kind of like a near-death experience almost, although I didn't actually go that far, you know.
Yeah.
But that was the closest I could come to in terms of where to turn for information, right? And so that's the first type of, as an engineer, I always, and back then there was no internet, right? This was back in the 80s, so I couldn't research it on the internet. I went to books. And so I was going to bookstores and libraries and talking to, you know, people who might be open. Most of my friends weren't open to this kind of idea, but I did have one or two colleagues who were interested. So one thing led to another, and for the next 10 years, I was researching this, and slowly my mind was opening to more and more concepts about how this works. And then I finally came to a point where I was reading books by people like Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, and you know, those teachers who are able to sort of cross daily life with wisdom, to bring the wisdom into daily life. How do you apply it in daily life? And that was really helpful to my pragmatic mind. And I came to understand by then that our thoughts do affect our health. And if we repress, you know, emotional pain and emotional wounds, and we don't heal them, they can over time lead to illness. And so after 10 years of exploring this intellectually, it finally dawned on me, I've got this giant wound in my heart. I sensed that it was an intuitive sense that if I don't deal with this, I may become ill, and probably in the heart was the thought. And so it's time to address it. It took me 10 years to get to the point where I was willing to even explore that. And so that was I went ahead and started doing some healing work. And that's kind of how I ended up in this little bed and breakfast or French Country Inn, because the healing sessions were being offered by facilitators working out of this little retreat place. And I got to know the owners of the inn, and as I was having sessions and stuff like that. And so about so that was like December of 92, I think. And the next spring, February, I get a call from the owner saying he and his wife were splitting up. And how did I feel about maybe helping her run the hotel? And so this happened around the time where I was asking myself, what do I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
So it's like Spirit offered me this opportunity out of nowhere. And I didn't have, at that point, I was open enough. I just said yes. So maybe it's midlife crisis, who knows, you know, but I took a chance and so I ended up moving to France, helping her run the French Country. As you can imagine, with the fact that they were breaking up, he left her with several teenage kids. And so she wasn't feeling too happy about the whole thing. So there was also an aspect of being a shoulder to cry on, as well as helping with the running of the hotel and all that. So I ended up getting more sessions as a result. Since they were running the sessions out of that hotel, I got kind of family rate on the healings. And so I took as much healing work as I could. So I ended up doing a lot of personal development and processing as a result of that. And at one point, one of the director of the institute there said, you know, I think you'd make a good facilitator. Are you interested in training? So I said, yes, again. That's what I did. I ended up training to be a facilitator of the type of work that I had done there. And then while I was training, I met somebody who was a student at the Brennan School, which is a large energy healing school in the US. And it's a 4-year program. So it's not like a weekend Reiki course. It's a 4-year program to develop as a healer. And its intention is to produce healers of integrity. So you have to be able to deal with your own stuff, because you need to know the difference between what's going on in you and what's going on in your client, and to be able to help them through tough things. So if they're dealing with, early childhood abuse and stuff like that, you need to be able to be there for them and not be scared, and and that means seeing your own stuff. So really profound training and understanding the energy, how our psyche develops from infancy to adulthood, and how that affects our energy field and that sort of thing. So it was a really profound training, and I'm really glad I took it. And I graduated in 2000.
There we go.
And then, so I had started a healing practice before that with the previous techniques that I'd learned. And so I've now been practicing about 25 years, and in Vancouver, which is where I eventually ended up. And so that's kind of in a long nutshell the story of how I got here.
That's a really good story. I like the potency of the experience that you had before you learned the techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just think that is so cool because, well, I'm sure the techniques are valuable and they help you to really get in touch with that feeling again. It's like that overwhelming feeling that's just outside of us. It's just such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And I'm eternally grateful for it. That started my whole spiritual journey, as well as learning about energy. And my book is titled Energy is Real. And that's because that experience made it real for me, right?
Yeah.
It was tangible. And I realized, as I learned more about energy, that it intertwines in every aspect of our lives, right? Not just the spirit, but also in our human energy, our emotions, our hidden demands, all the secrets, undercurrents that go on in relationship, right? The little manipulations that are unspoken, but they're
Yeah.
still tugging away at us, right? And I'm sure salespeople are really experts at this, right? How many times have you sworn you'd say no, and you get talked into getting something, right?
Yeah.
Especially online, right? And so there's and and I see so many people suffer as a result of worrying about what other people think, and wanting other people to change so that they can feel better about themselves. They make demands, they blame people, and they don't realize that by doing that, they're giving away their power.
Yeah.
And so all that blame does is make somebody else responsible for changing so you can feel better. And they may or they may not. In the meantime, you're stuck. So these were things that I learned as a result of what I was studying, and also applying it in my own life. And ultimately, the biggest lesson was that the energy of love is incredibly powerful. And even if you're battling your own ego, right, which we all have one,
Oh yeah.
and it comes out, especially when we're tired, or in a more difficult state, or upset about something. The ego will get us. And what I've learned is an excellent antidote to the ego, which is always unloving. It's is to consciously choose to feel love. And most people might think that's not possible, but it is in fact extremely possible. And so one of my very favorite exercises, have you heard of Heart Math, the Heart Math Institute?
I've not.
Oh, okay, well, I highly recommend it. They've done a lot of research on the human energy, and that the heart itself has a large field. They've measured it, a electromagnetic field that's bigger than the one emanated by the brain, and to the point where it actually can affect the brain and affect your thinking and that sort of thing. And so they teach techniques for shifting into what they call heart coherence, which means bringing the brain and the heart into coherence. And as soon as you do, all the negativity just melts, and then you're in this more expanded state of possibilities,
Hmm.
and you impact others whether you say anything or not. All you have to do is change your energy into a more loving state, and other people are automatically affected by it. And it's like the concept of two tuning forks that are both, let's say, a C pitch tuning fork. You strike one, it starts humming, the other one starts humming too. So they call that harmonic induction. It works for us too in our own fields. So as one person is able to hold a loving energy in their field, people around them will start to feel it. What they may not know what's happening, but they know they're starting to feel kinder, and they're
Yeah.
starting to feel happier. And I think this is one of the special powers that Jesus emanated, right? I mean, he was coming from such unconditional love. No matter what was going on, he was holding that frequency wherever he went, and people were responding
Yeah.
to that. And I think he was trying to teach us that we could do the same. You know, how that was his message all the way along, right? Was
It
about
was.
embodying that. And so I've learned through experimentation that it really works. And it's, people may wonder, how do you access, and especially if you're feeling crappy, how do you access the energy of love, right? Well, what you do is you take a moment to think of someone you love, and it could be a pet. You know, it's a lot easier for us sometimes to think of
Yeah.
a pet, you know, especially if we're angry at the ones we love, right? But we usually can feel compassion and loving towards a pet.
Hmm.
Or if we have a spiritual practice and we love our teacher, we can hold a thought of that person, and then you just think about how you love them, just your gratitude for them. And or it could be a grandparent that you loved when you were little, or you know, a little kid in your life or whatever, whom you just love, you just adore them. And you just allow yourself to take your thoughts off your grievances, whatever the ego is trying to pummel you with, and to just sit for a moment with your appreciation and delight and love for this other person, or dog or cat. And it will warm your heart. Your heart will soften as you do that. And then what you do is you just keep expanding that, and it feels warm. We could actually do it if you want, but it's you just expand it until it fills your whole field. And then it's like the ego evaporates when you do that. It's just like like shining the light in a dark room. It
Yeah.
just evaporates, and you're left feeling fabulous. And you don't have to say a word. You could, if you practice it on your own first, right? With there's nobody disturbing you and that sort of thing, just so you get used to how to do it. And then eventually, one of the things you can do is you can have you heard of neural linguistic programming?
I have.
Yeah, you know how they do anchors, you know, like they might to anchor a state of mind, they might do a little gesture or something like tugging an earlobe,
Yeah.
or you know, snapping their fingers, or something unobtrusive. And so every time you achieve that state of being loving, you anchor it by that some little technique, you know, whatever that's going to be. Let's say you tug your earlobe, or tap your palm or something. And the body, the mind will create neural pathways associating that sensation of that little trigger with the energy state of love. And
Yeah.
you can do this for any energy state. If you want to feel like successful or powerful, you can do the same thing. So if you practice that enough on your own, eventually it'll become automatic. And so you don't have to go through the whole visualization thing. You can just, you know, whatever your trigger was, maybe you tap your palm or whatever, in that moment, your body will automatically shift into that energy state. and you'll have the loving energy, which makes you more resourceful as well. It opens up your creativity, and it strengthens your physiology too, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're getting the oxygen and the blood and the endorphins. uh, so this is something, this is like an example of a type of energy skill one can use in daily life, right? If you're in a meeting, where you're being questioned, or you're in a tough interview with a boss or something like that, and you want to be able to respond in a better way than you would if you were feeling defensive, then you can just, by then, if you've learned how to anchor this, you can just do your little anchor, and it'll shift your energy instantly. And now he'll be affected by it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll be affected by it more, most importantly, but so will anyone else in the room.
Yeah.
And then, people start to, if their anger, it just sort of dissipates, and then everyone becomes a little bit more reasonable, and everyone's a bit more willing to listen when that happens. So, as you can tell, I'm passionate about what's possible when you learn how to manage your energy, that it is actually possible to manage your emotional state.
I love that a lot. And so when you are in that kind of stressed out state, or maybe you're feeling sad, or you're just out of the love state, in order to get back into the love state, you start with picturing somebody you love, right?
Yeah.
And then after you picture somebody you love, do you just continue to picture them? Do you picture doing stuff with them? I missed that part.
Okay, you're bringing that person to your awareness, basically a picture of them, but also how you feel towards them. That's the key piece, your
Mm,
feeling. So your appreciation for them. So I don't know if you pick somebody or something that means a lot to you and who you really appreciate. For me, say it would be a cat that I had. She's no longer alive, but I had a deep connection with her, and it just made me smile to think of her.
yeah.
And so I would just dwell in how much I loved her. And that's what I'd be feeling, is my love for her, and my appreciation for her, and my gratitude for having had her in my life. Even though she's passed on, I still feel that. And then all I'm doing is expanding that gratitude and that love for her. I don't have to hang on to the picture. What's more important is my feelings for her. And it's my love ultimately, right?
Yeah.
It's my love. It's not dependent on anyone else. And one of the things I love to do uh, with this type of meditation with clients is I have them bring it into every cell, and I say, this is your love. Let it nourish you too. So your love nourishes those you love, but you can let it nourish you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know how to love themselves. So here's a way you can do it. You start out with someone you do love easily, someone who lights up your heart. And that's what you dwell on, is how it feels to have your heart lit up. And then you just take ownership. That's your love for them. So just take ownership of your love and expand it to fill you, and you get to have it too,
Mm,
whether they're around or not.
yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. So it's really, we all have those natural things that we love in our life. To get in touch with that feeling of love, think of those things, then recognize the feeling in your body, and then let that expand either into your situation, into the rest of you, into other circumstances or
Yeah.
things.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
There we
You
go.
got it. Yeah. Yeah. And you can expand it beyond your body and create like a little bubble around you if you're going into some place where you might feel unsafe or whatever. It adds, gives you a place, a state of safety, and also protects you from more uh, negative energies, and emotions are lower in frequency than love. Love is a very high frequency, and so they get repelled, and
Yeah.
they just sort of slide off your field. And so it's kind of a safety capsule or whatever, and so it's worth knowing it as a skill. In my book I describe how to do that. I call it creating a bubble of safety. You could call it a bubble, or your capsule, or whatever you want to call it. And the other good thing to know is when you're in that state, it's a lot easier to access guidance. It's easier to access your own heart. It's easier to access your own higher self. So if you need to make a decision about something and you want your decision to be the best one for you, go into that state first. and then just open. So you're kind of like meditating in that state, and you just raise the question, what should I do in this situation? And you just open to insights to just pop into your head, and they will. So it's a very useful skill.
Mm. Now, I guess here's the question, because I feel like sometimes people, like sometimes I'll have that experience, and then I'll get some pretty intimidating things to do, of like, it'll be like, just drop what you're doing and go do this, or, you know, go after what you really want to go after. Yeah, it's going to be risky, but you got this. Trust me. And it's like, those can be some really intimidating action steps. And honestly, they can be action steps against like common wisdom. And so
Mm-hmm. What do you trust?
what would you say to that person who's like everybody around them would just tell them they're crazy, but they know what they need to go do. But and then they're kind of in that conflict of rejecting them, that part of them, or accepting that part of them.
I would imagine, here's what I would suggest. Your joy is your compass.
Mm,
So that's coming from your heart and your spirit. That's how they tell you you're getting warmer. When you're finding out if you're on your path, if it makes you joyful, it's a yes, keep doing this. If it causes you, to shrink back or doubt, then don't. But the what I would suggest is just make a tiny action in that direction
yeah.
to start with. Just the tiniest one you can that's non-threatening, right? It might be picking up the phone, it might be, you know, doing a search on Google, but either way, it's an action, and that's applying your free will in the direction of what you want, your dream. And then notice what happens, because I also trained with Mike Dooley, so I learned about the law of attraction and how to work with it effectively. And one of the key things is too many people think all they need to do is visualize, and that's enough. But you do have to take action.
I was about to say, get them.
Yeah, you have to take action, but it doesn't have to be big action. It doesn't mean sell the farm. It means aligning your free will basically in the direction of your dream and taking one tiny baby step in that direction. In my
Yeah.
case, it was saying yes when I got a phone call, right? And
Hmm.
then the next step followed that. And so, but it felt joyful to me to say yes. That's why I said yes. Was the invitation just felt too good to give up, even though I was giving up my career.
Yeah.
It just lit up my heart. That's how I knew it was the right thing to do. And and yes, people are going to say you're nuts and that sort of thing. Most people are too afraid to do stuff like that. But if you ask anybody who's taken that kind of chance, they are deeply grateful they did.
Yeah.
And at the end of your life, you look back and say, I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes. So, and you don't have to jump out of an airplane, skydiving. I mean, unless you want to, but you don't have to. Nobody's asking you to do that. You just have to be willing to take one step and then the next one. And the next one will be revealed to you as soon as you've taken the first one. And it can be that small, it can be that tiny. So it is easy to get overwhelmed. I easily get overwhelmed with too much. And so then I have to keep praying for, okay, so what would be the smallest step in that direction that I can do without worry,
Yeah.
and it's okay, spirit understands what it's like to be human. And so I would say to somebody who has gotten some powerful guidance, it's if it scares you because it's so big, then break it down into a smaller, what would the steps be to get to there, right?
Yeah.
What would be the first step that would align you with that? And then trust that the next piece of guidance will come to you with the next step. And so we only ever have to deal with now. And so whatever you can do now is good enough.
Yeah.
And the next now will show up right, all by
100%.
itself.
I love it. I love it. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and jump into your dreams and goals. We got about 18 minutes left on the show. So tell us about your
Awesome.
vision for your life, your clients and your company.
Well, for me personally, I would love to be doing this full time instead of just on the weekends. I really appreciate my contract work and that sort of thing. Uh, I am not dependent on my healing practice to support myself, so I really appreciate having a day job or day contract. And I enjoy, actually, there's another reason I enjoy it, and that is it's my lab.
Yeah.
So it gets me to practice. I get to practice what I'm learning about energy in all areas of my life. And, from that will come more books. And I love teaching. And so I would like to my dream is to really move forward into becoming a speaker and a teacher on a larger stage. And I love podcast interviews. To me, that's so much fun. And I get to talk about what I'm passionate about, and hopefully, engage a few more people who might be curious to learn more themselves. My dream is to create, ultimately, I would like to create, I want to get the word out to as many people as possible, so that, and not just, oh, that's nice. I want them to actually try it. I want them to actually learn the skills and use them in their lives so that their lives can improve. And that's my passion. Of course, I can't force people to do that. That everybody has to decide for themselves, but at least I want them to know the options. And so I see my role as being a teacher about that, at least letting people know about it. And those who want to take it to the next step they don't have to become healers. They just need to use their own energy for their own lives, right?
Yeah.
And in any way that works, in any way, just to discover that this is the source of their power. And that's what I'm longing to do. I feel so many people are afraid these days, and don't know what to do, and they're looking every which way for guidance, and the internet's the worst place to go for guidance, if because it's so conflicting, right?
Yeah.
And so much, who knows what's right anymore. And ultimately you have to go inwards for the truth. And so this little technique I mentioned about going into the heart and that sort of thing is where you need to go, and that's your doorway to your own spirit. And that will give you the guidance you seek for your own unique life.
Yeah.
So that's the message I'm trying to get around. And I want to, there's so many other things that you can learn that will help people to learn how to master their energy and use energy also in a creative way. So this is the dream that I have, is to get the word out to as many people as I can who can benefit from it and who are willing to experiment themselves. And I would love it for people to share with each other what they're learning in their adventures, right?
Yeah.
So that as a species, as humanity, we come up to speed. I mean, animals already know about energy, right? If you've ever seen how a dog or a cat reacts, they pick it up instantly, and we have that ability too. We've just been taught to ignore it.
Yeah.
So that's my mission. And I eventually I would like to create an organization that carries the work on, that I don't have to do all the teaching, that in fact it's like little chapters form and people teach each other, kind of thing. So I'm thinking a bit like, have you heard of Toastmasters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know how they form like these little clubs, and
Yep.
they all sort of work under the same sort of principles and that sort of thing, and then they have like a conference for people talking. But it's that same thing of people helping each other.
Yeah.
And so I would love to create some sort of organization in the future that works a bit like that, where you have like little chapters or clubs where people practice together and share what they're learning, because I'm sure there's much more we could learn about it and how to apply it, and also how to work together in groups with it, right? I mean, I think that's the next stage for our evolution. So to do it mindfully. And I think that's ultimately what will lead us to peace and to prosperity, not just individually, but as globally. And so that's my dream. That's my dream. And for me personally, um, I want to really strengthen. I lost a lot of strength as a result of lockdown and the whole COVID um, confusion and all of that stuff. I kept up energetically, and I was definitely online a lot, but my body suffered. So my personal goal is, if I want to see my dream fulfilled, I need to strengthen my own physical body and my vehicle, basically, so that it can carry me, so I can carry my dream through.
There we go. So you want to do energy healing full time.
Well, I want to teach about energy full time. The energy healing is is something that I want to, that I'm doing currently, but I'm thinking I want to do something on a bit bigger scale than just one-on-one.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And that includes like speaking on a bigger stage, getting the word out to as many people as possible, and then an
Yeah.
organization that will
And
carry on the work.
exactly. And also doing workshops and, trainings to get people online or in person, to get people learning these skills in person, getting them to actually practice them and get feedback and all of that stuff.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And then the last one is strengthen your physical body to see the dream fulfilled.
Yeah. So that I have this, because that's going to take energy and I need to have a good, strong body for me to carry it through.
Alrighty. Well, if there were one or two people that you can meet right now, and it could be a specific person or a type of person, and they'd really help you take that next step towards these dreams and goals, who would that person be and how would they help you?
That's a good question. Well, I would really like to meet Louise Hay, because she wrote her first book at age 60.
Oh, there we
She
go.
built this vast publishing empire starting at age 60.
Yeah.
And I would love to, and she was so wise. I would love to, have her as a mentor. She's passed on, but she would, because I want to know how she did it. And how did she keep her strength up? She lived into her 90s and she died in her sleep. And
Yeah.
so how did she manage all that and have such a big impact? So she's somebody I would love to meet and you know have as a mentor.
Mm. Louise Hay. There we
Mm-hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the top 1 to 2 skills that you need to develop right now to make your dreams and goals come true?
Top 1 to 2 skills. Well, obviously, I need to strengthen my. I this top 1 to 2 skills I need is to be more mindful of my own physical self-care in the moment.
Gotcha.
And I get easily distracted by what's on the internet, what's on my phone. I want to be much more present. So the idea is I need to embrace more fully my being here, presence, and groundedness. Those are very important parts of, and that will strengthen the physical body as well. And that one wasn't on my list.
You said what?
It wasn't on my list. I didn't have an answer for it, so
I
I wasn't prepared.
gotcha. I gotcha. Well, hey,
Yeah.
mindfulness of physical self-care in the moment, like presence and groundedness.
Yes. Yeah. And is it like this dynamic awareness of my where I am in time and where I am in space. So and also what's my current physical state? What does it need right now? So not to let my mind and take over. I need to be present in my body as well. And so the body is important for me to continue my work.
I
So
gotcha.
yeah.
And what character trait do you need to develop right now to make your dream life come true?
I think persistence.
Mhm.
Persistence.
Persistence. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, now we're gonna run through our thriving three real quick, and then we got one last question for you.
Okay. What is thriving three?
These are just questions I like to ask because in my head, I'm like, inputs lead to outputs in life. And so I want to know what are the inputs people are getting to take care of themselves. And then, that leads to the outputs that we've heard throughout the podcast. So the first question is, what's your favorite book, movie, or podcast? Pick one.
Hmm. Well, to be honest, the one that is most important to me is A Course in Miracles, and it has been my main spiritual path, and it's where I go to seek guidance and that sort of thing. So that's probably, it would have to be the one I mean, I love all kinds of books, but that one has been life-changing.
And it was called A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And what is one way you like to take care of yourself?
As what is one activity you mean, or what?
Yeah, one activity, one, or I can't imagine it not being an activity, but if there is another way that is not an activity, that can be included.
I really need to work on sleep.
Mm.
So I had a contract before Christmas, working with a client in Australia, and our meetings were like at night, and my whole circadian rhythm got screwed up.
I got you.
And so I got used to going to bed really late, even though I no longer need to the point where I need to get myself back, and I really want to get myself back into early nights and early mornings. I want to be able to enjoy the early morning.
Yeah, I got you. And what is one action step you can take right now or continue to take if you're already doing it to meet somebody who follows or is like Louise Hay so that they can give you the info that she couldn't?
Hmm. Well, I would have to do some research, and that
Yeah,
would be my first action step.
there
To
we go.
find someone who resonates for me, who I would probably take coaching with. And so I need to look into what's available out there. I know a few people, but I would like to check things out.
Yeah,
But the net result would be, I believe, probably to have a personal coach.
love it. And we got one last question for you. Ready for it? What
Okay.
is your favorite belief about yourself?
I guess it'll have to be I am loved.
Hmm, there we
Doesn't
go.
matter what I do, I'm loved.
There we go. Well, awesome, Gail. Thanks so much for coming on the show. That's all we got for you.
Thank you, Timothy. Timmy, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be on.
Yes, yes, we appreciate you coming on. And if you guys are listening to this and you loved what Gail had to say, make sure to hit her up, reach out to her. Gail, what are the best ways to contact you?
Well, people, if they're interested, they can, in learning more about energy, they can go to my website, energyisreal, all one word.com. And what they can do there is, if they are interested in learning more, they can sign up for a free chapter in my book, the first chapter in the book, which is all about developing your energy awareness, learning how to sense energy. And there are six exercises in that chapter, along with free audio downloads for each chapter, each not chapter, but each of those 6 exercises. So that'll give them a taste. And if they like that, then they can go ahead and look into getting the rest of the book. And I'm in the process of publishing the Kindle version of the book, so that'll be easier for some people. And there's a contact us form there too. So if they do want to contact me directly, they can use the contact us form.
There we go. Well, awesome. If you guys liked what she had to say, this podcast, all the links to contact her will be down in the show notes. Make sure to check it out. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.